What's going on, everybody? This is Andy Morales, and my guest today is Clarence Barbee, and welcome to this episode 7 of Unraveled Influence. How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm very, very good. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. Had a weird couple of weeks, had a weird couple of days, but I am breathing. I woke up this morning, so that's all that matters.
You ain't lying about that.
Word, for real, for real. So, the first question I always ask everybody this question. So, as far as poetry, as far as writing, how did all of that stuff start for you?
Um, and I always feel like this answer is like never enough, but it's always the truth. In that when I was in seventh grade, I had an English teacher, Miss Mobley, who really kind of caught my reins about writing and challenged me to do a poem for the Doctor. They always do an essay and poetry contest for Dr. King's birthday in Omaha. And in classic teacher fashion, she didn't ask me to write it. She challenged me to write it.
Hmm.
So she challenged me to write it. That poem ended up tying for first place. It was published in the Omaha World Herald, and from then on, it seemed like I was good at something, you know. So whenever you're challenged to do something and you actually succeed in doing it, um, you kind of stick with it. And that was kind of the thing that kind of led me on this journey where I'm at right now.
Amen, amen. So talk to me about that challenge. You said she challenged you. Like, was it one of those you better do this, or was it something like, oh, she saw potential in you? She said, hey, I challenge you to do this kind of thing. Like, walk me through that. How did that make you feel, and what was it about that challenge that made you feel the way if you felt?
Um, and I say challenge because you know, as a kid, teachers are very smart. I mean, Miss Mobley was very, very smart. She knew that she could ask me to do it, and she knew that like I would do it just on the strength of her asking me. But she wanted to get something out of me.
Okay.
So it's kind of one of those things where like you're dealing with the psyche of a 12, 13-year-old boy. You can ask him and he'll do it. But if you challenge him, you might get a little bit of more of a fire. You might get more of a spark, you know.
Okay.
So it's like when we deal with kids, we can ask them to do whatever, and they usually will. But I mean, like I said, when you challenge a boy, boys are usually, at least I know that I was, very very competitive, you know. And if you tell me that I can't do something, or you challenge me to do something, oh, I'm gonna go much harder than I would, any other way. So that was kind of the thing. Like when she challenged me, I was like, oh, gauntlet taken, let's go. you know.
Wow. So in a way, I guess you could say it was like she also believed in you. She believed that you could do more than what you were presently doing at the time, and she saw greater things for you. It seems from what you're telling me.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that was, the wonderful thing about Miss Mobley is that she saw, the beauty and the potential, um, excuse me, like from everybody, you
Right.
know. And I think that that's the thing that, especially when you're in middle school, and you're trying to figure out who you are, or you're just kind of trying to find yourself, and you're like, oh, this might work, you know. Um, and some teachers are like, you're coming in here, you know, however you're coming, you might be coming in correctly. You might be, and I mean, I deal with a lot of students too. So, some of them I'm like, hey, that may not necessarily be your lane. But, if you can give a kid a proper lane to drive in, then, usually you can get a lot better result.
So my question, because you said that you deal with a lot of students, do you see your older self when you were younger, like your younger self? Do you see your younger self in these students, like in a way that it resonates with you?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, and I work at a high school now, and I'm a teacher myself. So my kids that come in late, or always on their phone and stuff like that. I was just kind of like, yeah, that was me in high school. You know,
Mm.
it's a lot easier, for them when they're having a bad day, or I gotta be a bunch of explicit words.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, like, okay, you're having a bad day, like whatever. But I need you to be able to still, focus and do anything, and do the thing, do the work and everything else like that. Or I might, be able to try and provide some time for them, and literally sit down and be able to talk with them or listen to them, because maybe that's what, like, no one's doing for them right now. You know, maybe
Okay.
not listening. So
Mm. I love that. I love that. The listening part, because do you, it's interesting, right? Because I ain't gonna lie, this is what I wasn't expecting to go, and I love this. This is how
mhm.
I love the organicness of this. So the listening part, right? Do you think there's a difference in the listening today in opposed to how the listening was back in the day? 'Cause I know when I was growing up, it was like, if I did something wrong, the teacher would sit down with me and be like, okay, why are you behaving this way? You really gotta talk to your parents now, right? And
Mhm.
opposed to, and then the parents would be like, hey, what's going on? We'll have a whole meeting. It seems like nowadays it's not like that. I feel like the authenticness behind wanting to help the students and helping the generation after us, it seems like it's changed dramatically in some sorts. And I'm curious, like, walk me through that. How does that look like for you?
Um, and I think it looks differently, in a lot of different schools. In my particular school, a lot of it depends on the teacher. I have a lot of teachers that are really, really great at creating that kind of time and space for those kids. Whether it's like their planning period, and then they actually will sit down with them and be like, listen to the kid, kind of get a kid feedback, and really kind of like take that time that it takes. Sometimes it is a conversation where they're like, hey, we got to get your parents in on this. But I feel like, you know, a lot of our teachers still do that. I think
Mm,
that, with a lot of young teachers, I think that it's hard for them because they're trying to figure out where the boundary is, you know, uh,
okay.
kids. And so they don't even want to like understep it. They don't want to overstep it, you know. And then them being like, first or second year teacher, they're not super confident, you know.
Wow.
And I mean, like Miss Mobley was an older teacher. She had been teaching, 20 plus years. So, for her, she knew how to approach, she had tried, X, Y, and Z. Maybe Y didn't work out, but X and Z were like stuff that she knew would work with kids, you know.
Mm,
And I think that that's one of the things is that, we gotta, the way that you learn, anything is that you gotta try it, you
yeah.
know, whether or not you fail or whether you succeed, you got to at least take that first step and be like, all right, 2 plus 2 is 5, might be wrong. And, but
Yeah.
that's all. What I need you to do is keep taking those kind of steps. And I think that that's a thing that, as society, we keep, kind of taking steps. And sometimes it's one step forward. Other times it's 2 steps back.
It's interesting, right? Because you talked about the boundaries too. I feel like that, yeah, there is a difference, I think, too, because even see, because we didn't because when I was growing up, I didn't even know what boundaries were, right?
Right.
Because I was
Right.
still a kid. I felt like the teachers, to us, it felt like, oh, why they being so ruthless, or why they being so harsh, or why they talking so aggressive at us. And in
Hmm.
reality, you look at it in retrospect, you realize no, they believed that you could accomplish more, because
Right.
we don't know what they went through to get to where they were at. So I think in that same way, I guess in your particular case, it gives you perspective. Like, wait a minute, now I understand why your teacher was the way it was, because now I'm a teacher, I'm still doing this, I get it now. And
Right.
it's interesting because, see, because I have younger, I have a 4-year-old kid, but like I have a niece that's 11, I have a nephew that's 18, 19, and all that stuff. And it's like the generations are so different because they're talking about phones and stuff like that. And it's like we
Right.
weren't even allowed to even bring electronic devices, or it got confiscated or something. Now
Right.
it's like it's a whole different ball game. And I wonder how, like, when you go into a classroom, and I'm not talking about from a teacher's perspective, what about just from the perspective as both at the same time? Like, how does that make you feel at times too? Like, you see that, like, do you ever have moments where it's like, damn, back in the day I wouldn't dare do that? Like how is that for you? Because that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I mean, and you have that kind of weird parental, um, kind of aspect where it's like, yeah, I have parents that will text their child in the middle of class. You know,
Mm,
have parents who will tell me, yes, I'm going to text my kid to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do.
wow.
You know, so I mean, it's a weird kind of like dynamic, to where you have to learn. Some teachers are really good at like kind of integrating that tech into classrooms, and not necessarily just shutting it down. I was actually looking at an article, actually before I got on the phone with you, that was actually having this same debate, and saying that cell phones should be banned from classrooms.
Mm,
And then looking down in comments, as we always do, we'll scroll down and look at the comments.
right.
It was parents in there that was like, yeah, I'm still sending my kid to school with their phone because I need to get hold of my kid whenever I need to.
But you know what's crazy? But it wasn't like that when I was growing up, right?
It
Because
wasn't.
like it was more like they will call the school and then they get the kid out of class, and then you go to the
Yep.
like the main office, and it wasn't even the principal's office; it was the main office.
Hmm.
And then you were taught to see what what
Right.
the situation was, or even text messaging. It was more like taking a piece of paper, pass the note back down, and it's so crazy. I'm like,
Right. Right.
ah, we don't realize how this generation has it so easier than myself and even yourself. Like they have it so easier than us, man. They didn't even they were because we weren't afforded all that stuff. I mean, yeah, they had cell phones, but it wasn't like
No,
that crazy in that way the way it is today. It's so crazy to me because I'm like,
I,
wow.
that is true. That is very true. You know, but yeah, and that that, and I think that's kind of part of the thing is that, um, I feel like a lot there's been a lost amount of trust.
Mm. Oh
Kind
yeah.
of in, like you were saying, parents would have to call the main office, and then the main office would get the kid down, and just kind of like that process is still in effect. It can still work. Might be a little bit slower, but you know what? It still works. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but you have to kind of trust that process and trust the system.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That. Wow. I'm just like. I'm just on cloud nine because this is wow. I love this right now. So we are gonna switch gears a little bit because I still want to highlight your work and I want to make sure that people know who you are, your writing and stuff like that. So I want to talk to you about your books, right? You have two of
Mhm.
them, and there was one I was very interesting with, chicken soup and a shot of Jack. How did you come up with that title? That's a very interesting title because I think about chicken soup for the soul. You're talking about chicken soup and a shot of Jack. I'm like, wait, tell me about that title. How did that come about?
Um, Chicken soup and shot of Jack came about, and this is really crazy, because in 2014, I got my second DUI,
Okay.
right? So, I go to court, they're like, shouldn't have drove, yada, 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 take your license, all that good stuff. And I was like, okay, yep, all awesome. They're like, you're also going to have to do these, DUI classes, therapy, and you can't drink for, I think it was a year. I
Mm.
couldn't for a year. I got my license back. Like after a year, after I completed these classes and all this kind of stuff, you know. So I was like, okay, it is what it is. Um, and so like in going to these classes, they always do like kind of like a check in. How was everybody's day doing? What are you doing to keep yourself busy and not drink, right? Or do drugs, whatever your stimulant of choice was at the time of you know, um, your misdoing. So they come around to me and they're kind of checking in. They're like, what are you doing, to stay sober? And I told them I was like, I'm writing a book, you know. And a lot of people kind of looked at me and was like, "Yeah, you write a book, okay, yeah, whatever." And I was just kind of like, "No, like seriously, I'm writing a book. I'm working on essays and some poetry, some short stories, and all this kind of stuff." And I was like, "And that's what's keeping me sober right now." And they're
Mm.
like, "What are you going to call it?" You know what I mean? This is kind of like a group therapy kind of thing. So a lot of times people will be in their fields and everything like that. So I was like, I don't know what the hell I might call it. I might just call it, shit, chicken soup and a shot of Jack, you know?
Hmm.
And everybody kind of looked like, you know what? I feel that. I feel it. Like that makes a lot of sense to me, you know? Um, because I mean, that's, kind of like what our situation was. Our situation was, yeah, we had, we drank, we drove, we did drugs, we drove, we did something, and got behind the wheel of a car when we shouldn't have. Now we're sitting here paying the price, sober, really thinking about some of the choices that we've made. And I think that that whole chicken soup for the soul series is kind of like that kind of thing, you know. But yeah, it was in a time in my life where I was stone cold sober, and
Mm.
trying to figure out, all right, how do I move on to the next spot?
Wow. And I think that's what a lot of people don't talk about is the sobriety aspect of it, right? Because like 2013 was like my lowest point, so I was also struggling with alcohol and stuff like that. And when I gave my life to Christ, my whole life turned around, but that was a process in itself. And then
Right.
2015 I relapsed, and then I had to start the whole thing over again. But that's part of the journey. That's part of the process. That's how you learn. Um Explain to me the real, not the sugar coated shit, because this is what society happens. Like they don't really talk about the raw stuff about sobriety, like the first couple of days and then going into the next month and stuff like that. Like, hey, like walk me through that process, because I think that's something that's not talked about a lot. Like whatever that looked like for you, whether it was the withdrawal or the temptation, like, because for everybody it looks different for everybody, so I'm just curious for you, how did that look like for you? Like how real is legitimately that struggle, because that is real.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, with me, it's like anytime shit goes like bad, you know, like waking up and your tire's flat, and you're like, you know what, I can get through this day. I can get this tire right. I'm gonna have to pay some extra money, which I don't fucking have. But at the end of this day, when I get this tire right and I spend this money, I want to have a drink.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? It is that kind of reward system that I had kind of used it for that like got out of hand, you know, or like it became like that thing that was there for always birthday or always celebrations and always bad time,
Mm.
So like, and I mean, oddly enough, I was working at like a girls treatment center, and like we were dealing with teenage girls like every day, and their behavior was atrocious and
Wow.
dangerous, right? So I'm dealing with their situations for 8 hours a day, and then like the only thing I want to do is like have a beer and go to bed, or like have a beer, and a couple of shots, and be like, okay, now I'm numb enough to like not have to feel all of this shit that I've been feeling, or think about this child who's dealing with this situation, who acted out this way because of this, you know. Um, so I mean, that was kind of the thing, is like it is the escape, you know. And I think that's the thing that people like realize kind of on a surface level, but then like when you put your day-to-day shit in it, you know then it just you like you realize like, oh, this, I am doing that because of that. Like, oh, I did
Mm.
drink on my birthday, and I did drink at my dad's funeral,
Wow.
like, yeah, both of those things, like, like emotionally, yeah. Like, I'm, even if it's just an okay day and I just, went to work, nothing big happened, got home safe, nothing big happened, watched my favorite show, nothing big happened. Guess what? I drank through all of that stuff that happened that evening. Like, I
Mm.
got home, it was a decent day, had a glass of wine, cooked some food, did whatever. That wine turned into, 3 beers. Decided to go out. Those 3 beers turned into 3 more beers, and 6 shots at the bar. And you're like, what the fuck am I doing?
Wow. So for you to not be able to do that for a year, like how difficult that must have been for you, because that is hard to not do it for a year, knowing that now this is what you were used to. You were used to doing these things, and now it's like, I got this one DUI. I gotta take these classes, but now I can't do this for a year. The same thing I enjoyed. But the thing is, too, I think what a lot of people don't realize, too, is like, we were doing those things without realizing. We were probably masking a lot of pain or medicating pain that we probably didn't realize it was there. And I
Right.
think for us men, too, I like to think, like, us men are very prideful beings, and we're not like women that they'll express emotion like that unless, because we have these walls we put up. So it gets to that point sometimes where we have to, like, slowly we put the walls up, but there's that trust issue that, okay, but what if now there's another brick in that wall we're adding instead of taking down? And it's just it's hard, man. And again, so much respect for you for sharing that, because that I really feel like that's really how it is sometimes. We're used to something, and then now it's like, oh, this kind of got in the way because of my mistakes. See, this is what I did. Now I can't
Right.
enjoy those things. But at the same time, I look at it as, oh, but that's the same that I also saved you, right?
Mhm.
Because without us realizing it, we were probably already doing damage to ourselves without realizing we were damage to ourselves. And that DUI, right? Now, even though
Yeah.
that stopped you from enjoying the alcohol, but it also saved you from what could have been a worse thing. See, so there's also the brighter side of that situation.
It is, and it allowed me like time and motivation to like sit down and actually write a book. You know, which is like weird because I mean all that extra time that I was used to like going to the bar and drinking. I would go like either to a coffee shop or I'd go to a park or I'd park my car somewhere and I'd have my notebook and I'd be writing. You know, and like that was the thing. It was like you have to figure out um, and I feel like this is something that like he said in the group or somebody in the group said it, and I think that it sounded corny at the time, but like it's actually kind of true. Whereas like you have all this time that you spend drinking. If you stop drinking, there still will be that time. You have to figure out something to do in order to fill that time that's not drinking.
Mm. Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I don't give a damn if you're writing a book or going back and playing an instrument or spending more time with your kids or I don't know, pick up, a book on, becoming an electrician. I don't know. Whatever it is that, you want to do to be able to fill that time. Like people have to figure out shit to do to fill that time that's like meaningful to them. Some
Right.
people are like book readers. So they're like, this book reading shit is not going to be for me. You have to, sometimes it has to be like some kind of hobby. Or like with me, I know it had to be something somewhat physical, something I could do with my hands. Because like, drinking is very much hand motion. I also smoke cigarettes. So it was kind of one of those things where it's like it's a trade-off. Like I have to have this kind of motion going on that I'm used to having like in my evenings and my days off and shit like that.
Mm. Okay. Wow. No, that makes perfect sense. And I guess I also wanted to ask you. So when you put the book together, you started writing the pieces, and you were doing all that stuff. What? How did it make you feel to grab that pen and to start writing? And then once you finished it, and now, okay, there's the publishing, there's the process I have to go through to make sure everything's proofread and stuff like that. How did it make you? How accomplished did that make you feel? Or just, I rephrase that. How did it make you feel having to accomplish that goal of writing the book and then finally publishing? Like, walk me through the process of that, and then walk me through the final day that, okay, it's published, it's out. Like, tell me all about that.
I mean, the process is something that I think people really have to learn to love and enjoy. I was really blessed with Chicken Soup and a Shot of Jack that I had a homegirl who I had known for years from doing like spoken word and going out and doing a lot of slams and stuff like that. And she did like my cover design. you know. So like she would shoot me ideas because like I terrible, terrible graphic artist. Okay, I'm talking about like I had a can of chicken soup, bottle of Jack, put it together like on a page, had my name splashed up there, and like had like chicken soup and a shot of Jack. And I was like, hey, what do you think is up about this for a cover? And she looked at that and she was like, Clarence, this is terrible. This is
Oh
absolutely.
wow.
She was like, do you need somebody to design your book cover? And I was like, yes, you see what the hell I'm doing over here, you know? And she hooked me up and she was like, hey, I'm gonna send you some different designs on some stuff like that. And you let me know like what you're feeling, you know? And then I'd given her like a couple of pieces of poetry that I had written, and a couple of essays, and she was like, okay, I kind of see where you're going with your vibe is and stuff like that. Um, so like being able to kind of reconnect with a lot of poets that I knew, and then kind of like do a barter system because I didn't pay her like in cash for that. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember we traded because I was like, well, what do you need? Because like right now, like my money is low, but like I can get some things. And she was like, well, I need a microphone. So I was like, all right, cool. I was able to, get a microphone for her, ship it to her, and we use that as payment for her doing my book cover, you
Wow.
know, which is like really dope. And I was like, this is great. I also reached into the poetry world for my editor,
Mm.
Maya. And dealing with her was great because like it gave me somebody else to bounce this off of. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of authors, writers out there, like, oh, I don't need an editor. They're expensive. This and that, woo woo. And I was like, when you find you a good editor, somebody that will like talk through this with you, like it makes all the difference in the world. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And I think that was the thing because like I remember us really like diving into the essays, um, and the short stories. And she was like, are you really, this is the point that I'm getting when I read this. And she was like, is this the point that you're trying to purvey? And I was like, no, I'm not. She was like, we need to change all this up then. And I was,
Mm.
you know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So like I literally had like phone conversations with her because that emailing me back and forth, like I don't that I'm old school. I
Yeah.
got to hear the voice inflection, or I need you to be like brutally honest. Like and that's my thing. I was just kind of like, if it sucks, let me know it sucks, and I need to rewrite it.
Mm.
You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And I think that a lot of times people will kind of sometimes get their feelings hurt if somebody's like, well, this shit doesn't make sense to me.
Mm.
Instead of
Okay.
saying, okay, well, what doesn't make sense? You know what I'm saying? Because, and I think that's the thing is that as writers, we we kind of want to be one and done and be like, okay, well, I've written it, it's off my chest, I'm all done. Like,
Right.
no, somebody read your shit and be like, this shit don't make sense. This is misspelled. Did you really mean to spell ain't like that? You know? Because that's the thing is that, like you have to be like consistent about all of these things.
Right. Right.
So like I got a lot of good, bad, and ugly. And then like through the editing process, it was kind of like, oh, okay. Ugly is going to bad, bad is going to good, good is going to decent. And then, we land on this thing of, this final draft. And it was like, I was like, this is great. This is what I wanted. This is what I was looking for. Um, and then, being able to like upload it on Amazon and figure out that whole process, your copyrights, sending your TX form in, um, then learning about ISBN numbers, and how those will affect like your stuff, how much those cost, or you can get one free through Amazon, while you still retain the rights of your work and everything else like that. But there's kind of like the publisher,
Mm.
and I think that's kind of the boat that I'm on right now is do I want to have my own publishing company where I'm able to get a bulk of ISBN numbers and then publish them either under my name or under my company.
Got you. Got you. That makes sense.
But and that because that's the thing is, that's the process, and it is the publishing process. the writing process is something that's easy, to do. I think as writers, we all, will do it whether you're writing a poem or like a slam piece or you're, doing whatever. Um, you look at it once you've created and you're like, oh, okay, well that line sounds funky. Especially I feel like for spoken word artists because and I've written poems. Well, like I've read them aloud, and I was just kind of like, "What the fuck did I just say? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Mm.
It doesn't follow the flow of the poem." You know, so and I think that's the same thing with writing books is that you have to be able to like read it out loud and then look at it kind of from afar and be like, does this thing still make sense?
Okay. No, and that no, what you said makes perfect sense. I think that's what it is. People don't really talk about that kind of stuff, and it's so true. I think all that things matter because it's important, right? Because you know what the vision is for
Right.
your book, right? You know what you want your book to be. And yes, it's our responsibility to make sure that that point does come across. But at the same time, it's okay to have that group of people that believe in the vision that you are trying to show and to make sure that that vision is it pretty much comes out to what you want the vision to be.
Yeah.
Because I have friends of mine that are also publishers and stuff like that, and one thing they always tell me, right, the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing they have in common is they tell me that people think that, okay, here's my book, here, you take care of it. And it's like, no, yeah, they could probably do all that, but no, but you have to help me help you display that vision. Like,
Right.
I'm not gonna spend hours editing what I think you're trying to say, and then I don't ask you nothing, and then I show it to you, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, that's not what I'm trying to say. Well, no, we're not trying to do that. No, we do this together. That's why they do the contracts, they do the talking, and yeah, I'm the same way like you too with old school. I'm very old school. I hate that whole texting or
Right.
emailing. I'm very old school myself because my mother still has a landline phone, so I get it. Like yeah, even this generation won't understand that. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I just had to kind of throw a joke out there. but but yeah, this again, you know what your vision is, and our job is to make sure that we help each other get that vision out there. Because one thing we always talk about is everybody likes the idea of having something or writing a book or having a house or having a car or having this fancy ass job. But let's
Right.
be real, you could wear a suit if you don't. It's like you're trying to press a girl. You have a car, you have a suit and a tie, but if you don't know how to talk to women, they're not gonna take you seriously. So in that same way, it's
Right.
like if you like the idea of things, but no one really understands the responsibility and the discipline that it takes to have those things, and that's why shit hits the wall sometimes. That's just how it is. Because if you don't learn that, then life's gonna teach you that, and sometimes life is very harsh. They're gonna teach you harsh things. They don't care about your feelings. Like that's just what it is.
That's real. And that's real. And if you're, like a lazy person or a person that like, you don't want to put in the work, then the work is gonna get done regardless. So I mean you'll end up being steamrolled. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I've talked to some author friends who I was like, like I'll help you edit your book, if you want to do it. And it's like, oh no, I'll get somebody else to do it. And they did. They got like a friend of ours to kind of like edit the book, and they were trying to contact them, to really discuss the edits. And they were like, "Yo, you're not gonna do it. I'm just gonna do the edits, and I'm just gonna charge you." You know. And the edits were done, and they were charged. And they looked at the edits, and they was like, "Well, I don't agree with these edits." And I was just kind of like, "You got to put in the work."
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, if you just sit back and let somebody, do the job, then the job will get done. But you got to remember this is your story. This is your craft.
Mm-hmm.
And so
But
I mean, if it's somebody has an issue with it, then you need to be able to have that discussion so things are crystal clear.
yeah, amen to that. And that's what it is too. It's like it's oh man, that's so good. That is so good. Hold on, I gotta get my thoughts together because this is good shit right here. You're saying it is so true. Yeah, this is your. That tells me that you don't take your crafts fucking seriously. Then, if you're not gonna work with each other to make sure the craft, like what you want to do, is what you want it to look like. If you're
Right.
just letting me do everything and you don't really discuss the edits and I discuss you don't agree with it, now I gotta go back again. Then I don't hear from you for a couple of months because I'm trying to do what you want me to do. That means you don't take your thing seriously.
Yeah.
Then what's the point? Why do I want? Why would I want this? I don't want my company to represent this. I can't have you represent my company in the works I'm trying to publish for people if you're not gonna take it seriously. This is your book.
Okay. And that's and that's the thing about it, man, is and I self-publish. So it's like everything is on me. The cover design. If somebody shoots me a cover design that I don't like, I'm like, hey, don't like it. And they're like, what don't you like? And I'm like, I don't like X, Y, and Z. You know, and we might get to a point where I'm like, you know what, I might have to go with somebody else.
Right.
Because I don't like the cover design, or I don't like the edits that you've done with me. I think that I've had several conversations with designers who try to do 4 or 5 different edits, and I was just kind of like, you know what, you've given a valiant effort, great attempt. I'm going to find somebody else who might match my style.
And that's okay. It's no hard feelings. It's not personal. It's business. Like,
Right. But some people are not able to say no to that person, and they'll take that really crappy cover design, because
yeah.
it's their book and nobody's selling them. Man, that cover design sucks. Like, that shit doesn't fit what you're talking about at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I think your cover design has to match what you're trying to portray in your work and your pieces and stuff like that. Absolutely. Yeah. Amen to that. So now what I'm gonna ask is if you could read a piece to give the audience an example, a taste of who you are, how you write, and your style.
Okay. Um, let's see. We're gonna go to Chicken Soup and a Shot of Jack. This is a little bit from an essay that I wrote called "They Never Told Us." Just because I know that we were talking earlier about kind of kids and learning stuff, and things like that. So this is an excerpt from um, They Never Told Us. They never told us to listen to each other, never taught us to engage in the conversation, never taught us to challenge the speaker to prove that which they said was actually true. They never told us to dream. They told us to make goals, and those are the building blocks for the foundation of living. Rarely did they inspire us. They merely spat their philosophies of hard work paying off in the future, yet they didn't really teach us to smile. They told us to adhere to the rules, honor your mother and father, and your days will be long upon the land. They told us that mommy was unhappy. They never told us that mommy was unhappy with daddy's infidelity and that daddy was unhappy with mommy's insecurity. They never taught us to believe in each other. No one ever said that little boy or girl sitting next to you is your brother or sister and you will need them, so help them, and vice versa. They taught us to say, they taught us to never say hi to a stranger. They never taught us how to make a friend when everyone initially is a stranger. They told us what to do with they never told us what to do with the scary girl in the back of the class who wore dark makeup and never wore shorts in gym class. They never told us she likes to cut herself. They never told us why. They never gave us a game plan for that loner boy who always read advanced chemistry books and walked around with his head down. They never said to engage him or talk to him. They just said he would be okay. And that's kind of the excerpt from They Never Told Us.
Wow. That, you know what's interesting, and it's so true. Because I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. So I grew up, like, I was born in the '80s, but I was pretty much grew up in the '90s, and It's so true. Because I did live in a time where they never really told us those things, right? It's true, but that's something they never really talked about. What you said, like the dark girl with the the cutting themselves, like, because there was
Right.
always that one kid like that, or the little
Hmm.
nerd, like, and even the word
Right.
nerd back then, that was so offensive back then.
Right.
They even made a joking movie out of it called Revenge of the Nerds, right? But
Right.
like,
Right.
it's interesting, no one really spoke to us about that. You're right. I don't know if it's a minority culture thing or it was just the way it was. I don't know, honestly.
Right.
But I never, because like with me, when I was growing up, my parents never, especially my dad, he did not tell to us about the birds and the beads and the sex. Like, I had to learn that on my own.
Right. Right.
Like, they
Yeah.
didn't talk about that kind of stuff, you know. I mean, no offense to white people, but my father would say, "Oh, that's white people shit." That's what my dad used to say. That's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
typical
Yeah.
Hispanic. They would say that. I mean, sorry, white people. I don't mean to disrespect you, but it's just that's what I grew up watching. That's what I grew up hearing. Oh, that's white people shit. Like, we don't do that, and it's worse because you say stuff like that in Spanish, like that. That's even worse, you know, because you could say the
Mhm.
same thing in three different ways, and it sounds worse than the other. And that's the reality, because we were never told, and we told. But my question is, in your opinion, do you think we've told the younger generation too much?
Um, on one hand, I feel like we did. And I think that's kind of where that boundary thing kind of comes in, and it's kind of the same thing, kind of like with social media.
Mm.
You Teenagers who have social media, you know, I feel like it can be like a double-edged sword because I mean, emotionally, if you're, 15, 16, 17 years old, somebody posts some shit about you or you get a DM, you're gonna fly off the handle immediately,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Oh man.
Whereas, someone older might be like, what does he mean by that? Or, does he mean this? Or like what? Like let me call and like kind of figure it out. Um, and I feel like that's kind of the thing is that we were having all of these conversations. Um, and like with our parents, if our parents were having certain kind of conversations, I know I would be excused from the room.
Exactly. Yeah. You actually, I wasn't even allowed to be in the adult conversations. They would tell
Right,
us, "Hey, get out of here. This is
right. This
between."
this is a grown folks conversation. I need you to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that with us saying, I'm not going to be like my parents. I feel like we threw that out the door.
Mm-hmm.
When I feel like we probably should have kept maybe some of it
Mm-hmm.
because there are some conversations the kids don't need to hear,
This is true.
right? You know, and I feel like that's kind of that kind of boundary thing where like kids feel like they're grown because they're in all the goddamn conversations,
Mm.
Whereas I'm like, no, you're still a child. This is my business because I'm an adult. I'm the head of this family. You go in the other room. Go sit your little tail down.
Mm-hmm. Oh
'Cause you have to think
man.
it is over here. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So, and that's what I'm saying. I don't necessarily we need to do that like all the time, but I'm just there are certain times where you're like, yes, I need to have this conversation in front of my child so my child understands and knows what this conversation is supposed to look like.
Okay.
You know, and I feel like we just swung the door up and we was like, we always let the kids in, but I'm like, there's certain times it's like, no, you need to go out, you need to go on out, so I can talk to your mama about this.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I definitely believe in there's a time and a place for everything. The problem
Mm,
with my parents was there was no such thing as a time and a place for everything. It was more like, no, this is not the time for you to be here. Get out.
right.
That's no. I'm just like, oh man, because everything you're saying is so true. This is like, it's not talked about enough. I will say that off the bat because that is real. What you just said,
Hmm.
because I think that's one of the foundations as to why a lot of my generation have mental health issues. I'm not saying all of it, but majority is because of that, because there was stuff that we could have learned from just hearing these conversations, even if we didn't hear the whole conversation. Maybe there were certain points that we thought that could have been important, but we're just
Right.
never gonna know. Um, I remember years ago I was having like a marriage counseling with my pastor, right? Because this is like the pre-marriage thing that they do, so they do. It's important for us, to understand
Oh yeah.
marriage, what we're doing, which I think a lot of people don't do these days now, is the pre-marriage counseling. I think that's very important because I've learned so much about my wife through that before we got married, and I understood that once I
Hmm.
got married, that wasn't going to be about me anymore. So I understood that. One thing he said in this one meeting, and it blew my mind. I look back now and I'm thinking about what you're saying. It just puts it all in perspective. The problem with the older generation, like my parents, even our grandparents, great grandparents, like they don't give back, if that makes sense. When
Hmm.
it comes to life, they don't give back to us. Like they think that if they gave us a materialistic thing that was kind of like, okay, shush us up kind of thing, and okay, we move on. Okay, now you're happy now, because someone like myself, there was certain life advice that I could have used, that you could have taught me, that my
Right.
parents never, because again, my parents never sat down with us, so we
Right.
had to learn all these things on my own. Like you can't tell a kid, hey, listen to what I'm saying because I said so. Yeah.
No. Yeah. That's that is such a dead line right now. That because
Yeah.
so you know um and I just and I remember like my parents using that line on me, because I said so, and
Mm.
I was just kind of like, this is not the end of the argument. Like that is not the end of the argument. Like that's your final like because I said so.
But that's not good though. But now that's gonna. I feel like that makes the kid want to do it now more than ever. Don't touch the candle because you're gonna get burnt. Okay,
Right.
that's reason. Okay, then I won't touch it because I'm gonna get hurt. You're just saying, oh, because I said so. Don't touch the candle because I told you not to touch it. And then you
Yeah.
touch it. Oh, I told you not to touch it. You see, but
Mhm.
why do I have to wait for me to touch the candle for you to tell me why I shouldn't have touched it in the first place?
Yeah.
But you say that to your parents. Oh, that's a smack in the mouth. Because growing up, I wouldn't even dare talk back to my parents.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Oh yeah.
now, and I work
Yeah.
in retail. What?
Yeah.
It is wild.
It is. And that's but I mean, but that's the way that our society has shifted, so much. Because I mean, now, kids will call and be like, "Hey, my mom hit me in the mouth or whatever," and then the next thing you know, you got the police at your door, and you're like, "Well, I guess you're gonna go to your auntie's house for the
Hmm.
rest of your damn life,"
Wow.
because you can't. That's child abuse now.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, for all this Bible thumping and beating and everything, it is, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, like I'm not a huge, theologian or anything else like that. But like I said, it has to have some kind of balance, within everything. You know, yes, I don't need a child to be abused, but you know what? Spare the rod, spoil the child. I would rather teach you this lesson myself rather than life get out here, because life is going to hit harder than either one of your parents put together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a lesson I learned. I was like, yeah, my dad might have hit hard, but shit, that DUI and that $7,000 I had to spend behind it hit a whole lot harder.
Mm.
You know what
Come
I'm saying?
on.
So I mean, it's those kind of things where it's like, yes, because I told you so is not a good answer. Can you take a little bit more time and do some explaining to me? Can I get a better example?
Yeah. And then if you even ask a question, it was like, oh, that means you're not listening. No, it's not. I'm just trying to understand. No, you're not listening. I'm like, no, it's not that. Like, it's crazy now. Like now it's so different. I mean, I'll give the generation credit. At least they're willing to listen. But the problem is when you, what, even though they're willing to listen, but they're so fast to criticize. They're so faster to judge and offend people and not care. But then it gets to the point where, okay, now we have to be careful what we say because people have become sensitive. Civilizations become very extremely sensitive to the point that
Yeah,
you can't even be politically correct anymore. And
yeah,
it's insane. It just mind boggles me that that's what it's come down to.
yeah. And I agree with you, wholeheartedly. And it's like, like I love stand up comedians, and I love going to a stand up show, and it was like for a while there, like you can't really go to a stand up show and for a person to like tell their authentic truth, which is gonna have some humor in that shit.
Mm-hmm.
It may be kind of hurtful or whatever, and be like, oh, that stung a little bit, but you know what? That's kind of true.
Mm-hmm.
Not able to like do that.
Yeah. Come
Um,
on. Oof.
Society, we tilt back and forth so much, but us kind of tilting this way, the way that we are, I'm just kind of like, dude, like I need you to like not be so offended. And you get a little bit thicker skin, just a little bit, you know, so that somebody can say something to you, and you can, you know, view it as being like actual criticism rather than like an insult.
Mm, amen.
Granted, there are some people out here that's just blatantly trying to insult you. Yes, okay, I will give you that as well. But you know, if I tell you something, you know, bad, or I'm giving you a review about your job, and you're like, you know, you're not being fair, and you're, you know, X Y Z because I'm X Y Z, and I'm like, no, that's not the case.
Mm,
You
wow.
know,
Yeah. Wow. Damn, this is such a great conversation, man. I want to. Oh man. Woo. All right, come on, give us another piece, man, because that is wow. Because if I don't, oh my god, because you know what it is too. We can go on for hours talking about that. 'Cause this is truth right here, man. This is,
yeah.
I'm telling you, they don't talk about this, man. And yo, that's truth. This is truth right here, man. Amen, yo. Amen, brother.
All right. I think we're gonna I'm gonna kind of stick with this topic a little bit, and this is all from Chicken Soup and a Shot of Jack. This poem is called Inverse. Gone are smoky lounges and platform shoes with big hair under disco balls. Ramona is no longer brave. Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys failed to solve the mystery as young eyes become increasingly old behind soft, glowing, touch activated screens. Libraries no longer exist. So, how the hell do I cite that website again? There is no more or else, because the pages teachers are on are not the same books that administrators use. Expired are teachers with Little House on the Prairie dresses, or misters with neckties and tight button collars. Gone is the teaching of respect. Gone are two-parent households. Absent is the strap or belt, a twofold tool that daddies had, one because he wore the pants, and two because he was disciplined. Gone is the stability of two-parent households. Mamas are still around, no, changing, evolving, or de-evolving as the case may be, sending their girls to school looking like they're ladies of the night, strolling the street. Little boys not much better, waddling side to side like fat ducks on rippled waves. Pants can't rise to the occasion. AWOL seems to be the community. No more candy lady or aunties in windows all night. We just neighborhood watching, ready to fight when hooded youngsters come around. Entitled to our gun because the government told you to stand your ground. AWOL seems to be the community. We got preachers for profit doing more than storefront screaming. They getting down on reality TV, and apparently Catholic preachers took a powder, pumping little boys full of sin. God may be an absentee landlord as Christians hold on to the tale of the second coming. Gone are smoky lounges and platform shoes. No more or else. Unpresent are two-parent households along with discipline, respect, and stability. AWOL is the community, and God just may be an absentee landlord. Moral standard, which would seem to last forever, has sunken into soil, sprouting a yield, is a far cry from the greatest generation, atomic revolutions, and the hopes held with great grandbabies of integration. No longer do we actually hope or actualize change in our cornea's REM moments, veiled under skin. Alarm clock sounds, causing the opening of pores and the moments of nevermore to continue.
Wow. Wow. That's just the truth. The main thing I got of that is that I feel like respect has been lost.
Yeah.
Respect is not the same as it was today, right? Because they think that, oh, by us not saying certain things, we're showing respect. No, it's not that. It's more than that, right? Because
Right.
if I tell you don't say something, okay, fine, yeah, you just chose not to say something, but that doesn't mean you're respecting anything. That just means that you just chose not to comment on certain things, right? Respect to me,
Mhm.
like, oh, how about like when you're on the bus, give up your seat for another lady, that
Right.
kind of thing. Or hey, if someone's behind you, hold the door so they can pass through, you know. Or
Mhm.
putting up a seat so your lady can sit down, and then you go around and sit on your seat after, like, you know, ladies first, like that kind of
Right.
thing, the manners and stuff. Like, don't spit on the floor, spit on like on a napkin and throw it away later when you see a garbage can or something. Like you know, that to me is respect, you know, like respecting your parents, like, you know, like no matter how older you are, right? You should always
Hmm.
respect your parents, you know, especially your mother. And that's what it is too. Like they don't understand what true respect is, and I feel like that's lost now. Like you can't go to like in New York City, I cannot go on a train
Hmm.
without saying excuse me, and I say excuse me and people don't listen and they're looking at me like I did something wrong. Like this is what it's come down to now.
Right.
Like I can't even say excuse me anymore. Like you sneeze on the train just saying achoo, people are already
Hmm.
looking at you crazy. Why? Because this coronavirus that happened
Right.
3 years ago, and it's like now everyone's looking at you just wrong, like mean, like as if
Yeah.
you did something wrong. And I'm like, dude, I'm just sneezing. But you see what I'm saying? Like it's crazy because how something like that happened 3 years ago. Oh my God, they're still paranoid. I mean, I get it, fine. Everybody has PTSD. That's their business. But it's like there's no respect in any of those things anymore, and it's just like it's insane to think that this is what it's come down to. I can imagine my grandparents
Oh
looking at
man,
this generation today, and they'll be laughing their asses off.
it would be. They really would be. You know, and it just, it's just kind of the matter of, like we were talking about, just, kind of everybody kind of getting so far away from, the center of what we know. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and and I think that you do have a valid point about, people just kind of being able to understand like what respect is. And it's just kind of like, yeah, the polite thing to do is, yeah, say excuse me, on a crowded train. Because I mean, yes, I've been in New York several times and I have got on the train. I know what that battle is. It's real.
Mm. Mm.
you know
Oh my
and
God.
you're lucky to get an excuse me. you
Yeah.
know because back in the day you might have just, gotten to, get the hell out the way or move, and some hands laid on you.
Yeah. Right. But even with all that, like even I remember when I was growing up. Okay, whatever. We got into a fight. We fist fought. All right, whatever. But there was that bro code. Like, okay, cool. You know what? You still got up, shook hands, and we move on. Now everybody want to stab everybody or they want to push someone off a track. I'm like, yo, this is not how it was back then. And you didn't do this crap public. You went to a park. You fought in
Right.
the park. Got a
Hmm.
few licks in. Nobody got killed unless someone wanted to fight unfair. That's a whole different situation. But
Right.
9 times out of 10, you moved on. And then your mom was like, oh, why you got a black eye? Like, you
Hmm.
know? Now it's like everybody wants to fight in front of the school. Like, what? Like, what are you doing? I mean,
Well,
and I'm like, damn, I guess it's just not my generation then. Like,
no, but and I mean that's the thing is, that's why I said it's kind of like, we've allowed social media to get out of control, and
mm-hmm.
then our parenting, we've allowed the kids in the room with all the grown folks conversation.
Yeah.
So now, our kids see, all this, world star, fight here, fight there. And I mean, like I said, I work at a school. So, I already know I'm going to be on camera breaking up a fight,
Mm.
you know, because no one's going to break up the fight. Everyone's going to record it. There will be 37 different recordings with, 25 different angles, you know.
How does that make you feel though? Cause like as a teacher too, because I'm
I
like,
mean,
damn man, like it wasn't like that back then, man. Like I know like times change, but it
right.
was more like people broke it up. There would be like one or few bystanders is there, but there was
Mm,
always somebody broke it up before it got out of hand.
right. Well,
And
I mean,
nowadays, it's
yeah,
they don't even want to break it up. They're like, oh, screw it, let them
no,
fight. I'm like,
yeah. And I mean, my thing is just, and I think about just kind of like the kids involved as far as, did y'all plan on recording this? Like, was this a planned thing? And then two, like, if you got beat up and you got beat up on camera, and this was not like something that was planned, like, how do you work that? Because I mean, by the time that I get the video or whatever, it's already, viral.
mm, yeah,
Matter of 20
man,
minutes. I'm getting them, broken up and make sure that everybody is good. 20 minutes goes by and I finally get somebody's phone. The next thing you know, oh, it's been chatted out or it's on IG or, it might actually be on World Star, you
yeah,
know? And that's why I'm just kind of like, dude, like, this person's they're feeling like, I got beat up, and now the whole world sees me get beat up, not just my school.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
it's a pride issue now, man. Especially us boys, men. Like it's a pride issue because now it's like, because in one aspect it was more like if you didn't fight, you were a cornball. Like that's just what it was. And people made
saying?
fun of you because you didn't fight back. Okay, fine, but then everybody moved on. You get older, fine, whatever. Now it's like, it's so, I don't know. It's just interesting to me. It really is because I'm just like, how did it get this way? Why did it get this way? I'm not saying that back then was any better either. I'm not
Right.
saying that. I'm just saying like certain things made a lot more sense back then than it does today. Because
Mm-hmm.
like you rather record someone getting killed pretty much by 10 dudes, let's say, for 10 people or whatever, and it's like you just stand there. Like I just think common sense to me, break, like I don't know the guy, but just break the thing up. Like that was just
Right.
common sense to me,
Yeah.
bar none. Like that's it. I'll break it up. I don't know the guy, but just break it up. Like that's
Yeah.
just what I've always been taught. That's respect.
Mm-hmm.
That's manners. Like you just don't do
Mm-hmm.
that. Now it oh man, I don't know. It mind boggles me, honestly. It really does.
Yeah. This world is
It's oh my goodness. And the worst, you know what? And I was gonna say this earlier about generations. The worst part about all that is when people in our same generation, they're doing the same thing as the younger generation. That's even worse.
yeah. That I agree with you,
Because we
wholeheartedly.
should know better. Because we should know better than that. And we act just like the younger generation, but yet we complain about the younger generation. But we are doing the same exact BS.
It's very true.
So, we are almost towards the end, and again, I want to thank you for coming up on here and telling me your truth, sharing your works and your thought. I mean, again, this was not what I thought the conversation was gonna go. This was better than what I thought it was gonna be, and thank you so much for that, because it's like you can tell we're on the same page. We're on the same page when it comes to life values, and it's like it's hard to find stuff like that. So thank you so much for this.
Ooh, thank you for having me on, man. I
No,
appreciate
absolutely, and yeah, shout out to Carlos Wyndham for that mental health Zoom meeting we did. Because
it.
my Unraveled Influence did sponsor that, and I was honored and a privilege to do that. Mental health is very important, and there you go. See, like even the conversation touches on that because all of
Right.
that messes with our mental health, and that was never spoken about back then, even in schools. So there you
True.
go. You know what I'm saying? But so this is my last question for you, and I always ask everybody this. So once we are not in this life anymore, so when people hear your name, what do you want to be remembered by? What legacy you want to leave behind? What impact you're leaving to, you're looking to impact, like all that stuff. Like, what does that look like for you?
Um, I feel like, you know, when I'm no longer here, I feel like my books will be part of my legacy. Um, and my books will be filled with stories about some things that are all the way right, some things are all the way wrong. Essays and poetry that will make you think, debate, um, and maybe try and figure out a better way of doing things. And I think that that's kind of the power of story, is that even your main character sometimes will go off the rails. You know,
Mm,
what does it take that main character to get back on the rails? We all learn through a story. Everybody is familiar with Aesop's fables, um, and stories out of the Bible and things like that. I want to be able to add to that canon and just say, hey, um, what would you do in this situation, or what is the correct course of action? Let's kind of look at our right or wrongs, and then let's all come to a really strong or stronger consensus of what this right and wrong thing looks like.
wow, wow. Nah, that's a beautiful thing, and yeah, you're right. That's wow. Wow, I'm like lost for words because that was beautifully said.
And I
That's
appreciate that.
and that's what it all comes down to. So Clarence, thank you so much for again joining me, doing this episode with me, and just having this conversation, because this is that type of conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah,
Absolutely, it's not talked about enough, and I appreciate you, and I so much respect for you for sharing your story with me, and that's what this platform is all about. Just telling our stories, because like I always say, I know it sounds a little cliche, but yeah, celebrities have stories, but what about us? We have stories too that we want to talk about, and
yeah,
I'm glad I've been able to be one of the, I don't want to say the first people, but I want to be, one of the people that when people look back and be like, yeah, you know what, Andy was able to provide this platform so people like us can listen and relate to people, at the end of the day, this is gonna be everywhere, so people will come across this, they'll hear this, and it's like, wow, this is deep stuff, and it's true.
yeah.
So much respect for you. So, any last words before we end?
I just want to say thank you, Andy, for providing the platform. Like I said, I've listened to a couple episodes. Keep doing what you're doing, supporting indie artists, poets, writers, authors, because there are a million stories that are out there, and the celebrities are the ones that get highlighted. But it's real people like yourself and me, and people that you interview that also have great stories. So keep on doing what you're doing, man. I think we all appreciate that.
Amen, amen. So thank you everybody for listening to this episode, and until next time, have a good night, everybody.